Hi guys, so we're halfway through Season 5 now of Mamemeister's High Score Kerfuffle, and we've still got plenty of games to come after we've had a couple of classics and a few new discoveries. Last week we had another game from Pingy, and that was Fastlane, released by Konami in 1987. This game is like a cross between Pac-Man and Gradius. There is the maze element, with enemies that are trying to get to you, but then there are also the power-ups for dispatching those enemies. As you progress further in the game, the power-ups become fewer and the enemies more aggressive. Unfortunately for this game though, whether you are playing for score, as we were doing here, or for level, the game can be heavily exploited through staying on level 1. This was seemingly overlooked by Konami, and it's possible to stay on level 1, keep killing the enemies, and collect the power-ups and the bonuses. This makes it possible to accrue a much bigger score than what is realistically achievable through progressing through the game. It is still a challenge to exploit the first level, so this week is still valid, but once you reach a certain point, you can effectively continue forever, as was discovered by Juff. He was the first to find that beyond around 600,000, the blue trucks get stuck in a loop and cannot hit you in the centre, and if you hit 1,000,000 points, then the score resets. So this game is broken on a number of fronts for those that want to chase a big score. Even if we were playing for level, you could accrue lives by the same tactic and then work your way through the levels. It would have been easy for Konami to fix with a timer, but it seems they overlooked this. Even so, most people weren't fighting in those scoring ranges, so let's see what the scores look like. We had 21 scores this week, which is obviously a drop from Dodon Patchy last week, and the broken scoring put a few people off, but it's still a decent turnout. We had returns from Pearl and Arcade GG, which is great, and so I've reinstated their places from last week. Unfortunately for Juff, that has meant Pearl took last week's win, and Arcade GG gets in the points too. The return from Arcade GG has put him in 17th. Charlie Farr played a couple of games during his livestream, which has put him 15th. Paul, Mancave Arcade, and Alex all have their best finishes this season in 7th to 9th. Our top 6 are the usual suspects though. Mark is in 6th, returning from last week. Pearl is in 5th, and he streamed a few runs on Twitch. I'm in 4th, and then our top 3 are Pingy in 3rd, Graham taking another 2nd place, but this week's winner, after having last week's victory taken away from him, is Big Juffer. He was the first to fully exploit this game, and I decided that getting to that point was going to be the max, so he was awarded this win before the week was finished. So well done to Juff, and he becomes our 5th winner in the 5 games we've had. Here is the distribution of the scores. We see that things aren't too far away from a normal distribution, as you might expect for a somewhat linear scoring system. 2/3 of people are in the central 3 bins, showing that most people scored similarly. We then have a bit of a gap to our group of 4 ahead, and then Juffer is all the way out in front as the only person to score over 1,000,000. And now the difficulty curve. This is an interesting one, as we can see 3 steps within the data. This is curious, as it's not like the game has an obvious sticking point. The curve flattens off initially, there's a small step to another group of people, and then finally a bigger step to our top scorers. Juffer is up at the top, but really his score is similar to 2nd to 5th, as the game is broken beyond around 600,000 or so. At the halfway point of the season, let's take a look at the leaderboard. Things are beginning to settle down, with less movement than we've seen so far. Arcade GG, Alex, Paul and Bob are all up. Retrotron has snuck ahead of Mike to get into the top 10, and Milthy has got ahead of Robert for 8th. For our top 7, there is only one swap, and that's at the very top. I said it wasn't going to last, but my reign at the top has finally come to an end, with that win for Juff. He's now topping the table with 320 points after 2 strong weeks, 24 points ahead of me, with Graham still in striking distance. Now, on to this week's game. That win for Juff means he gets to retain his choices in the selector. I also opened up the option for Discord participants to either change or new regular players to put some games in. We've got some new games from Leaguesy and MS-DOS Floppy, and I swapped a couple of my choices. After getting his 2nd game, I've removed Pingy's games. So let's get things going and see what we get. There we go. What are we going to get? Okay, so we've got Rygar from KMA. Rygar game I have heard of. I think is it like an action game? I don't know much about it. I'll go look it up, make a video, and be back in a sec. So this week's game is Rygar, released by Tecmo in 1986. As I vaguely remembered, this is a side-scrolling action platformer where you control the titular character and have the ability to jump and attack. The weapon you use is known as the disc armour that you can project out in front of you and behaves a bit like the whip in Castlevania. A quick play, and like numerous Tecmo games, it plays nicely and I can see myself enjoying this. This is another game that's available on the Mister, so it would be good to play on that for me and the other Mister owners. So I think this should be a good week with another different style of game. The scoring I believe scales with progress, so we shouldn't have any issues like last week. I hope you all enjoy playing some Rygar, and I'll be back next week with the scores. See you then.